All right, so welcome back to another Black Caliber podcast. I'm here with two lovely people. My co-host, Miss Dean Joseph, a doctor.
Good afternoon.
And we're also here with the lovely Dr. Monica Taylor, who is the Delaware County Council Chair.
Good afternoon, everyone.
All right. So first, I just want to say, how you guys doing today? How you feel?
Doing good.
Good.
You look
It's
nervous.
actually good to be here with you. My comment every time I see you is that it's like you're my boss, and I'm happy to do what I can for you as well as for the department. And so I'm happy to be participating here with you all today.
So happy to have you.
Same here. Happy to be here. Just had a great conversation with a group of students, and so glad to be able to come on campus and talk a little bit about the work of the county and what government and politics looks like in Delaware County.
Do you get to do that often? Like come talk to students?
Well, so I get to talk to students every day because my regular full-time job is a professor and graduate program director at Temple. So I love talking with students, helping them figure out what their next steps are, what their path is, and it's really something I enjoy doing.
Okay. All right. So earlier you said that you played D1 basketball. So I just want to know more about that, especially as a student athlete myself. Like, what was that like?
It was fun. I loved it. Right? I played Division I basketball at the University of Maine, and we were pretty good. And so we actually went to the NCAA tournament, won the conference championship 3 years, and I
She
had
was
the
tough.
opportunity.
So you was like that.
We were a really good team. And then I had the opportunity to play professional basketball in Europe afterwards. So it was good.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. All of those activities, I would imagine, would have helped to have some kind of influence on what it is that you're doing today. When did you know, as a result of those experiences, that you would end up in the field that you are? Did it feel like it was a step-by-step process, or was it circuitous in some ways?
Yeah, no. So if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would have been in politics, I would have said no. I was always moving forward in the steps. My goal was to actually be in higher education administration, and I said I was going to be a dean by the age of 40, and that was what I was working towards. And then I'm one of those folks who I guess activated after the 2016 election, and I realized I could be doing more for my community, and I should be doing more. And I started my life in politics, I'll say. I started in the school board level because I have 3 little girls who are in the Upper Darby School District. And that's really where I started in politics. I thought it went well with my academic background, my education background, and the fact that I have kids that are going to be in district for a very long time. And so it was a really good fit. I absolutely love being on school board.
So when you think about your academic journey and mentioning when you would have come into politics, at what point was that? Had you already completed your doctorate and your academic background already by the time you went into quote unquote politics?
Yes. So I'd already completed my PhD. I'd actually already been a professor for 6 years, 7 years. I was an undergraduate program director at the time at the University of Sciences. At the University of Sciences at that time.
Sciences, okay.
And then University of Sciences is now part of St. Joe's University. And then I moved into the graduate program director role at Temple University. So I was kind of making those steps towards administration and really put that a little bit on hold. And not moving towards that goal anymore. I found that I have a passion for politics and really more so serving my community. And in the role that I'm in county council, I get to do a lot for people right where I live and for my family and for every municipality in Delaware County. And it's really rewarding to be able to see the impact that we have as a county council and the policies and the procedures and the programs that we are able to put in place and implement.
So how does the audience then understand this being referred to as political? Are there term limits associated with it? you get voted in? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so we do get voted in. I was first elected to office in November of 2019. For county council, we serve a 4-year term. There are 5 council members, and 3 are up at one time in one cycle, and then 2 are up on the off cycle. And we do actually have term limits. We have a 2-term limit, and so I've just started my 2nd term.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when you were speaking with the students earlier, now I have a better understanding when you talked about the role of the pandemic, because that would have happened 1 year after your term.
Yes, actually, a couple months in, because I was sworn in January of 2020.
Oh boy, so you had like 2 months.
Yes.
And then in fact, were you home like the rest of us in March?
I was, but I was also at the government center because we, it came to be that the local level was really the big response to the pandemic. It was a coordinated effort, but we had to be able to be the ones who implemented or made sure that people knew where to get the services and utilize the funds that were coming through the federal government or the state to be able to implement these programs in the county. And so I was in the office a lot with some of our other key skeleton staff and home from the university as well. So, yes.
So what's interesting about that time period also is how much we learned about life. So I was just reading an article about, and all of us here know it, how exponentially things would have changed in terms of remote learning. And not just remote learning, but also working from home. So there was a sense that policymakers talked about the years that they advocated for that and how that one incident would have turned into something that we will never go back to. So I would imagine that healthcare in your mind has changed dramatically as a result of the pandemic in terms of what we think about it, what we can do, what we can't do. And so when you think about the fact that there's a radical change in that way, in what way has it changed radically that you think we'll never go back to doing that again in your field?
Yes. Let's see. It's interesting because in county government, there's so many pieces of it that are, you need to come in, right? We have so many departments that it's like, okay, you have to come in, you need to do it's work here, right? We have like our emergency response team. They can't do that from home, right? We have our social services, and a lot of that is our people facing, our resident facing services. But I will say that being able to be, I guess one of the things we learned out of the pandemic was the ability to be agile, right? And to be able to flexible and shift and change and pivot on a dime, because we were all trying to figure it out, and we would get recommendations 1 hour and 3 hours later be like, oh no, don't do that, do this. And so it has made us as a county government more flexible. Our government was a little bit antiquated in terms of just everything was paper. Everybody had to do, you had to come in, you had to fill out these forms. A lot of our directors have really been amazing at moving everything online because we had to. There wasn't any other way.
No choice.
Right? No choice. So we're forced to really move into being, and that makes us more accessible, which is a goal, right? We want to make sure that our services, every resident can access them.
I don't want to dominate.
No, it's fine.
You could tell that
you are great at this. I'm like, man, I should have let her host. No.
But kind of staying with that, in what ways has the response to healthcare, how we see individuals, because I think we're in a different period of time when it comes to that as well. When you think about the underprivileged and the way that they took the quote unquote big hits that were associated with the pandemic, and the idea that we have a different viewpoint of that, and maybe even a different kind of responsiveness that's associated with that. What did you learn from that? And what do you hope, continues to stay? We're here with college students, obviously, who would have been here during the pandemic. And there would have been COVID monies that were available. But then as soon as they declared it, quote unquote, over, some of those funding dried up for them. And we're starting to really see the results of that. I'm sure you had some similar kinds of things happen.
Yes. I will say that the pandemic I think it opened the eyes of people who maybe weren't paying attention before to the real ingrained disparities that exist, right? And for us as a county, we didn't even have necessarily the data because we didn't have a health department. That's one of the roles of a health department, is to be able to understand the community, gather the information, gather the data. And now we have one. And so one of the first things we did was a community health assessment. And to be able to see where our community is and where our disparities exist and how we prioritize the work that we do as a county government and as our health department. But for us, we really think about it as health in all policies. And we have our health department now. I'm very thankful for that. Also very thankful for the fact that Chester County said yes to being our health department during the pandemic. We asked them, they could have said no. They said yes. So I am eternally grateful to them for helping us during that time of need, because I don't know where we would have been without them. It actually saved a lot of lives. But coming in and being behind the eight ball, right? They already had a long-standing health department. They were able to understand their community. I already knew what the stats look like, what the data look like. They knew, okay, this community is going to be hit hard, or this community, and we didn't have that information. We didn't have access to it, and we didn't have the ability to even gather it at the time. And now that we do, we can really see, when you look at the disparities that exist in Delaware County, being a really small, condensed county, but a lot of folks, we have, I want to say it was a 20-year difference in life expectancy between our highest life expectancy in the county and our lowest life expectancy. And those municipalities are only 3 miles apart.
And so what are your hypotheses as we are here now with these college students? Yes. What are you guessing? What's your hunches about that, about those findings?
Yes, thinking about the different communities that exist there, it's socioeconomic status, it is housing, it's access to employment, it's access to healthcare. All of those pieces come into play, and that's only 3 miles away. But that's information that we need as policymakers in the county to say, okay, these are the items that we should be focusing on. And it's not just for that area, because as you can imagine, coming out from that area, there's also lower life expectancy, right? And it's all of the quality of life numbers. And when you think about health in all policies, whether that's housing, education, all the social determinants of health, all of those things we intersect with in county government.
So who's paying attention now that you have that data? And what else are you going to do with it to kind of use it so that there are better outcomes?
Yes. So right now we just spent a whole year assessing the county, right? Doing that health assessment. And now we are creating our plan. What are our top priorities? Where are they going to be? We also already knew some areas that were going to be top priorities, right? The maternal child health, the mental health, the housing. Last year, we created a couple different coalitions. So we have a maternal child health working group. We also had a housing working group. They started last January, and we tasked them and brought in as many people who wanted to be at the table as possible. So our housing group had about 87 people on it. They represented Fair Housing Authority, the Foundation for Delaware County, state, local, municipal governments, community members all across the board, right? Everyone who could help us and give us insight and talk about housing. And we broke it into 3 different buckets. We said, what are we doing for our unhoused? How are we looking at housing affordability and rental stability in our county? And how are we helping people who want to stay in their home or become new homeowners? Those 3 buckets were really important to us. And we tasked them with going through, assessing where we are right now, and determining what our top 3 goals should be for this year and what should we be working on. And so we had a big forum and announced it and had like a whole presentation on those 3 groups and what they have been doing, and then announced what our goals are. And that's about bringing the community in, but that's also taking the information that we have, that we've learned, and trying to put that into policies and figuring out, okay, we know we have an unhoused problem. Why do we have an unhoused problem? what are the upstream impacts and what's causing that, right? And how do we get people, if we're thinking housing first, how do we get people into homes, into stable homes, and how do we get them to stay there? And how do we wrap them in supports and services? But also, when we think about that next bucket, why are people becoming unhoused, and that rental stability, right? The housing affordability. Are they being priced out of the market and losing their homes because of that? How do we create more eviction mediation programs? How do we help people stay in so they don't become unhoused? Right? And then the next goal on that continuum is we're stable, we've been there, we have all the supports around us. We want you to stay here, buy a home. How can we help you buy a home? How can we help you purchase your first home? And so really trying to come out of that with clear items that we do. We have clear goals in each bucket. And so that's exciting.
Yeah. Are you starting to get clearer now on what you hope will happen in terms of your career post politics?
I'd say it's still up in the air.
It's still up in the air. Okay.
We'll see. Okay. I love what I do at the university, right? I love being around college students. And I love working with them. I love seeing them grow. I love helping them grow. And being a part of that. And just the university life. I mean, you all know, it's fun. It's a really fun environment. I love coming to work every day. I also enjoy the impact that we're able to make in county government and the work we're able to do in the massive amount of projects and policy and initiatives that we've been able to move forward in 4 years. They're not just going to impact us right now, right? Our health department is going to live on for generations and impact the health outcomes of individuals in Delaware County. And that's something that we did.
And you've created a legacy yourself now, because you'll always be associated with the first, like we're the first, right?
Yes.
That to be able to create the county health that Chester County and the others were able to help you with. So congratulations to you for that too, because that legacy is going to be there for you as well. Yes.
Thank you.
And so as we're
I really appreciate it, because the level of questioning is definitely more mature than I would be. So there's no problem with that. But something that I was listening to when you were talking about how you were a Democrat, and you said that there had been no Democrats in your position since like the Civil War or something like that?
Yes. So when we won in 2019, so in 2017, there were 2 Democrats that were elected. And so there's 5 people on the council, so they were still in the majority. That was the first time since the 1960s there had been any Democrat at all on the county council. And when we won in 19, we took the majority of county council, and it was the first time that it was a majority of Democrats since before the Civil War in Delaware County.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So like, what were some of the barriers you had to face to even get there, to get in that position, especially if you're just moving into politics and you're like, know what? I'm gonna do this. Like, what was that like?
Let's see, the barriers when we were running. I think it was that people just didn't think that it could happen, right? Or they had a little bit of glimpse because we had won for the first time in a really long time in 2017. They were like, I don't know if we can actually win them all. And in Delaware County, there had been this whole culture of patronage and of folks being almost in fear, depending on which municipality you lived in, of, I don't know, if we're voting, don't come knock on my door. I don't want people to know I'm a Democrat. You know, if they know you're a Democrat, they're not going to pick up your trash. Like, those are the type of stories that we heard while we were going around. I was also young, right? I'm young. And that was in itself a barrier. And during our campaign, we started putting on my literature, like Dr. Monica Taylor, to like almost identify the fact that I've done things I can accomplish. It's okay. I'm young, but that's all right. And I'm going to move this forward. And I think we spoke at the door, and we did a lot of knocking. We talked to a lot of people, thousands upon thousands of people, to say what we were doing. And it didn't matter what political background the individuals came from. When they heard, like, oh, we don't have a health department. Oh, we're sending back money in workforce development. We could be using it on our own residents. We have the only private prison, and this is what's going on. It resonated with folks, right? It was like, oh, okay, you you're going in to do something. And I think they heard that, right? And we had that message across the board with all of us. And so while there might have been some barriers, I think we just pushed through and kept pushing our message because it worked out because we were elected and we did exactly what we said we were going to do. We accomplished those goals and we did that in our first term. And when I don't think people thought we were going to be able to do it that quickly and during a pandemic. So it spoke well. So when we were running the second time, it was kind of like, look, we said this is what we were going to do. We did it.
It was a cakewalk. So with the workforce development, especially as a student on a college campus, like, so what was that? What were they doing wrong? And what did you bring in to fix that?
Let's see. So I talked a little bit about, and so this was one of the barriers when we came into government, right? We had so many people who left because they were worried about what was going to happen or whatever.
Trash.
Right. Right. And so we had over 300 employees who left between November and January. And a large, like out of those 40 plus departments that we had at the time, I want to say there were about 32 directors that left. And so we were left with no director. a low percentage of directors, let's say, and a gap in our workforce. And so that was a barrier in itself to us trying to move forward, and then the pandemic hit. And so I feel like I went off on a tangent. What was your original question? I was going to bring that back somehow.
About workforce development.
Oh, yeah. So one of our directors in workforce development was actually one of the people who resigned. And so we were able to bring in a new workforce development director who really had a new vision, a different vision, a vision that aligned with what we wanted to happen. And she had already been working in the space in Delaware County for a very long time. So she knew kind of some of the hurdles that exist and knew where they were missing the mark. And when she came in, she just kind of revamped the whole office and was like, we're going to spend, we're going to get the money out the door. We're going to make sure we're getting it to residents. We're going to partner with every university in the county. We're going to do we're going to bring all these new training programs in. And she did just that, to the point that we are spending all of the dollars that we get from the federal government and going out for additional grants. They just went out for a grant maybe a year or so ago that we were able to bring in funding so that we could put a workforce development program through our workforce development office in our county prison, so that they can train individuals, get them ready to go, so that when they are released from our county prison, they are already set and ready to go and are having like virtual interviews and ready to go and have a job. And so it's really about that, right? We weren't in a position to do that before because we weren't even spending the dollars we had. And we weren't even able to expand to be able to even think about going in and adding extra programs like that. But that's what, when we think about reentry and when we think about folks who are recidivism and how we help with recidivism rates, that wasn't something that they were concerned about in the previous administration's prison, right? Because it was a private owned prison. Their goal was to fill the beds, right? That's how they made money. Our goal is to have a low population in our prison. And how do we create all of those programs? How do we create the reentry programs to make sure we're not seeing people again? And then how do we create those programs that are going to get people before they're in the prison, right? And help them as much as we can.
Yeah, when you said 300 people left, that sounded like a blessing and a curse. Because you're saying it wasn't working before, everybody left. At least now you can bring in whoever you need. Yep,
exactly, right? It's like, okay, well, we had a hole, but now we get to fill it with people who are on board and who really want to go forward. And I will say that while it's a different culture and a different policy and a different initiatives that we want to push forward, we have 3,400 employees. So a lot of our employees were there and have always been there, right? And are still there and have really just gone into high gear and have supported us and really through the pandemic and through all of the things that we've been going through over the last couple of years. And so it has been a blessing and a curse, but I think we have a really great team now.
Yeah. So you mind if I pull rank and we wrap this up?
No.
Okay. All right. It was great. In honor of Dr. Monica joining us, and also this being Women's History Month, and obviously you're a woman, you're a Black woman. You told us about your 3 daughters.
Yes.
And I think the audience might also be interested in the notion of work-life balance And what are you hoping that you are doing in as far as your 3 daughters are concerned? That might be a good place for us to kind of wrap things up, thinking about those kinds of things, which I think the viewers are going to be interested in.
Let's see, work-life balance. I try to, it was very hard the first 4 years, I'll say. Although it wasn't as hard because we were virtual for the university, so that made it a little bit easier. Now that we're back on campus, it takes some time management, a lot of time management. And I try to make sure that I have time to spend with the family and to make sure we're there for, my kids are really active. I have one, and they're not involved in the same things at all, right? I have my 10-year-old swimming and basketball, and then my 7-year-old's all about cheerleading and dance. And so we're all over the place, my husband and I. And so I try to make sure that we are there and I'm present when I can be. But I also bring them to our county events. So they're a staple. They're always with me. My husband works on Saturdays. So anytime there's events all around the county on Saturdays, I have 3 girls with me. And it's great for them, right? Because they get to see so many people and so many different types of organizations and so many different ways in which people are helping our community. They also get to see a lot of women in leadership.
That's great.
and which is great, because I want them to know and to see that, right, they can do anything, right? And they can be anything. And there are so many people out there who are doing it, that they can see themselves and who are there. And
That's
so
great.
I think
That's
it's
great.
yeah.
I really have enjoyed this. I think we could go on.
I know, yeah, we can definitely keep going
here.
Yeah.
But anyway,
We'll be talking for an hour.
I was gonna say, especially in light of Women's Month, y'all kind of stole my ending thunder, but it's fine. I just wanted to appreciate that we have 2 Black women in positions of power, both doctors, well educated, here, and they just are in the business of helping us. Helping you, helping me, and grow the future. So I just wanted to thank y'all and let you know that I appreciate you and we appreciate all of you for what you do.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
And with that, can I just get you guys to say this is the Black Caliber Podcast?
This is the Black Caliber Podcast.
Distinction at its finest.